Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome back to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and our topic today is Rest is a Leadership Strategy, and she means it, with my guest, Dr. Erin Wilson. And today, this episode of Your Partner in Success Radio, is proudly sponsored by Ben Gay III. Now, Ben is a legendary sales trainer. He is an author and the creator of the Closer series, and I have both of them, parts 1 and part 2, but there's more. And these are must-have resources for anyone serious about mastering the art of selling. I'm very grateful for his support and for the powerful principles that he continues to share with entrepreneurs and sales professionals around the world. So be sure to check out his books and his training at Ben Gay III. Ben Gay the Third. It's 1, 2, 3, as in III.com. He's easy to find. You can also find him on LinkedIn and Facebook. And my guest, Dr. Erin Wilson, is on a mission to transform how leaders and teams thrive by integrating relationship intelligence, strategic rest, and intentional leadership. As CEO of Design Ideal Consulting, she crafts transformative team building experiences, and she's a certified expert in core strengths, the 5 behaviors, and everything DISC, D-I-S-C. Erin is also the co-founder of the Strategic Rest Summit and co-author of Strategic Rest in Leadership, the NAP, and by that she means NAP, framework, and I have that book, where she challenges the hustle mindset to help leaders cultivate clarity, resilience, and creativity. She also hosts the Power Nap Live show, where she is exploring the intersection of rest, and I need rest, my voice is shot, leadership and innovation. And I mentioned I have her book on my desk, and I'm going to tell you straight out of the chute, I highly recommend it. And this is why. I'm someone who tends to be a workaholic. So rest is not always, it doesn't come naturally to me, to be honest. And sleep is almost impossible most of the time. So what really struck me is how the book talks about the guilt that so many of us feel for taking breaks. And she points out that rest is actually how we build sustainable leadership. And she's going to share a lot of that. Good morning, Erin. Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. And I have to say, you do so much to guide leaders and teams toward clarity and resilience. You did it with me in the green room just now. When you think about your own life and work, how do you choose to show up in the world?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad to be here with you today. One of the ways that I show up, well, first of all, I think about why I wrote this book, right? Why I wrote this along with a colleague of mine, Dr. Kelly Dixon. But I didn't write the book because I mastered rest, right? I wrote it because I almost burnt out chasing leadership titles. And I had to stop to realize that rest was not a luxury. It was really a survival strategy that was necessary in order for me to be sustainable, like we talked about. Um, I have found that the world, especially the leadership world, really praises hustle. And I wanted to really disrupt that and ask, what if rest could be the new competitive edge, right? And so I truly believe and started to move in a way that I started to deeply understand that I can't pour from a cup that's empty, right? So my book and the way that I show up in leadership spaces is really about how to fill up your cup without that guilt.
Listen, you're speaking my language. I mean, I just go, 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 go until I fall down. Or, you used to say I fall down and go boom. That's it. I'm down. And I know better. We all know better, but we still do it.
Absolutely. We talked about this a little bit, but yes, right? So many people, of course, as you think about leadership, as you think about people learning how to be good managers, good supervisors, just good humans out there, right? We assume that the same way we learn skills, the same way we learn how to use different computers and all of these different pieces is the same way that people learn about rest. And that's not the case. Oftentimes, we only think about rest as the time that we're drooling on our pillows, and we're missing some really valuable spaces in order for us to feel rested, which is so important. Um, Especially as people are tired of being tired. That's what I keep running into. Clients that I work with, corporations that bring me in to talk to their large groups and their managers, even people who are C-suite level managers who've had executives who have had long careers. So many people that I'm running into now are just tired of being tired. And so the NAP framework in our book really allows for you to have an actionable way in order for you to look for the best way, again, to feel rested without feeling that guilt. Because it's important for you not only to have strategy for other things, right? We have strategy for everything else. We're intentional about everything else, but we have to also bring that kind of intention and strategy to rest because it is a powerful tool for sustainability, but also for clarity, for creativity, and ultimately so that you can show up as the best version of yourself.
And right as you said the word creativity, I was writing it down because you and I have had several chats, but I remember writing because I keep notes about what we're talking about. And I remember writing down Conrad Hilton because it's well known that he would shut his office and take a nap every single day.
I love that because, right? Think about all of the things that come from that piece. Oftentimes, we're so afraid to step away from something because we think if we drop the tools right now, that we won't be able to complete it. But oftentimes, we find that stepping away, right? Taking a brain break, even if it's a tiny micro break, just 2 minutes of going like, let me take a deep breath, right? Allows for your brain to have time and space to be able to think up a next move that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do if you were in the project, right? So it's so, so important for us to be intentional and to think about rest as a system, not a nap. Right. And for some people, it
Right.
could be that nap. He's closing the door and that makes sense, but it has to be a system. It needs to be intentional, scheduled, and even really aligned with what your mind and your body actually need. And if nap is what actual nap is what it needs right there, hopefully everybody needs nap, the framework, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if your body and your mind actually need a nap, then that's what you need to figure out how to provide for it. But sometimes it needs for you to be around people who are a part of your community, who hold you accountable and who you enjoy being around. Sometimes it needs you to learn something new, right? Sometimes it just needs you to be in a space of quiet where you're able to rejuvenate. So you've got to start, which is why intentionality is important when it comes to rest, because we've got to start being able to ask ourselves, what does my mind and body actually need in order to fill that need?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And you just said something important. Just sometimes it's just 2 minutes. And I do what I call my open refrigerator door meditation. No joke. When I'm sitting here, and I've been writing a lot of code recently, I've written so much code that I've been taking bathtub crayons into my shower so I can write code in there. It's like it got a little messy. But, I got the code right. I was able to relax enough, but I will catch myself when I'm looking at code or I'm looking at a problem that just is I keep staring at it. I'm not moving. My eyes aren't even moving. I'm just in a trance almost. And I will haul my butt to the kitchen and open up. I've got big double doors on there. And I will stick as much of my upper torso and my face in there until the bells ring and says, shut the door, shut the door. But it's long enough for me to just go blank and recalibrate.
Absolutely. Because look, strategic rest isn't just logging off, right? It's really making sure that you're aligning your rest with your goals and specifically for leaders with your leadership goal. Because I truly believe and have seen it in action that recovery is a performance enhancer. It's not just true rest is not passive, right? It took you getting up from where you were working in order to walk into the kitchen, to open the refrigerator, and to really experience, which is so cool. I think I might do that
Do it. Your
myself
face
to
go
try it out because that sounds absolutely amazing, like
It
refreshing
does.
cold wind, right? And just that
Right.
time. But
Once my face cools down and my temper cools down a bit with it, it's all good.
exactly. So that is exactly right. Like true rest isn't passive. It's a leadership skill that you really build like any other skill that you have.
Well, and we don't know what we don't know. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm a list builder. I've been building lists since I was old enough to read and write. I started reading at 3. I wasn't writing so well, but I was always making lists. And I found out a long time ago they're beautiful. They're color coded. They just make sense. I don't go back and read them because I don't have time. So I quit doing that. But we do have to have strategies. And if a strategy for you is a list, go for it. But if it's something that says you need to rest in between looking at that list or building that list or meditate, whatever it is, you do have to have a strategy for that. And that's what your book and having conversations with you has taught me. I knew better. I told you this in the green room. I know better. So why don't I do it?
Absolutely. So self-awareness really is step one, right? Oftentimes it's not that this is foreign to many people going like, "Oh yeah, I do need to rest." But our book is incredibly important because it doesn't just tell you to rest. Lots of people, of course, we scroll on social media, we see the videos and people are saying, "Hey, you rest," right? What's
Right.
different about our book is that we actually give you an easy to follow framework, right? That allows for you to be able to do it. And it really is a cycle, right? It never stops, but you continue to have those 3 pieces. And we'll talk about that. Of course, the framework is nurture. So NAP, of course, is the framework, and N stands for nurture. And that's really about nurturing your mind, your body, your boundaries, right? To sustain your leadership energy. So we provide some information about how you're nurturing it, understanding what that looks like. And then the second thing, the A, is for assess, right? So you've really got to take a moment, take a time, take a how long you need, but to assess what's working and what's not working. Because self-awareness is really the gateway to transformation. I tell people that all the time. It really is true. And then the P is for prioritize, right? So it's all about prioritizing your well being, the way that you prioritize your goals, both strategically and consistently. And so in that, we've got steps and of course even a challenge in the book in order for you to really have actionable ways to practice each of those steps, but to help you use it as a formula, as I'm talking to all the nerds out there, right? To use it as a formula, as a framework to help you practice strategic rest. Because you've got to start by rewarding yourself for sustainable practices, not just that visible hustle that folks are out here doing.
Exactly. And I do want to dive into the book. And I remember telling you earlier, you're going to have to come back. Right now, I'm booked all the way through December, which just scares me to death. And it's only August 1 today. But I need for you to come back because there's so much of this conversation. I've got questions that we're not going to be able to get through. But what I'd like to do, and you have to tell me yes, because I said it on the radio. So there is that. But I'm open to, right now, I've got the book open on page 13. And this is, I think, one of the most important part of the books, believe it or not, of the book. It says how to use this book. Well, yeah. So you say begin with the foundations, and then you go through the chapters. This is what you're going to be seeing. How did you write this book? It's very
So
logical.
to me, that was important, right? And also to Dr. Kelly Dixon. So we wrote it together, and it was really born out of the two of us starting to understand that um, that things can be chaotic, right? Like my first kind of wake up moment for me, and I shared this in the book, was having a stress induced like seizure. Right. I was showing up everywhere. I was chasing titles. I was doing all of these things until I realized that I was really being called to impact people and not just systems. Right. Like I had to shift from ambition to purpose. And that's where everything really changed. And that really opened up our ability to be able to provide um, accountability for each other to help for us to take care of ourselves, right? So we started to have, as we talk about in the NAP framework, that of course, community is one of the ways in which you can feel rested, right? So we started to have what we kind of called a little bit a monthly mastermind, right? So we would literally get on Zoom. We live in different places and have never lived in the same place, even though we wrote this book together. And monthly, we would talk about everything, right? The things that were keeping us not rested, the business plans that we were making, keeping each other accountable in different things. We would laugh, we would talk, we would cry. And what was born from that is as we started to hold each other to taking care of ourselves better, we started to see that things for us around us were changing in the most delightful ways. Nothing was burning down, even though we were taking more time in order to intentionally integrate rest into the work that we were doing. Matter of fact, we were able to come up with more things, build businesses from this conversation. I actually took my first steps into full-time entrepreneurship because I was really making those spaces to course correct what had been hustle culture for so long in different spaces for other people. Into what was a sustainable practice for me, right? So that's where it was born from, really the conversations that we were having. And then we started to go, this is going so well for us. How do we capture this in order for other people to actionably be able to follow it and do it? And that's where the nap framework was born from. I kind of giggled and said, people just need to take a nap. And then we talked about what that could look like as the framework. And that's where that nurture, assess, prioritize came from. So I'm so grateful, of course, to have written the book with her. But one of the most important pieces as we wrote it was also that we didn't want this to be a chunker of a book, right? How do you tell people to rest and you're giving people 3,000 pages to read, right?
It's
So
an
we
easy
want
read. It really
it is
is.
that was at the forefront of our minds. We wanted it to be something that people keep with them, right? That you go back to in order to help remind yourself of the thing that you kind of knew deep in your mind, but that we forget as the complexities of life and the hustle that other people bring towards us comes back. So it is definitely easy read. It's not written, even though both of us are, academic doctors, if that makes sense. We wrote it for leaders who needed a quick boost of energy and a real way in order to experience strategic rest and to practice it.
And in some ways, you can use it as a journal. Now, I will not write on a book or break the spine or turn the covers down because my childhood librarian, and I lived in the library when I was a kid, would rear up out of her grave and get me. So I still can't do it. But if you don't have those neuroses like I do, you can use this as a journal because I'm looking at day 1 and it says establish rest routines. There's a whole bunch, there's a big area where you can write it down. Day 2, day 3, same thing. And I'm looking at that
Absolutely.
going, I want to. No, I can't. So I have sticky notes in there. And it's a fat little book now. It's really not when you leave it alone. But when you're as neurotic as I am about marking up books, I've got index cards, color-coded index cards, and I've got sticky notes.
First of all, that makes my little heart so happy, but you're absolutely right. So we didn't want this to just be a book where we tell you how to rest, right? Or tell you to rest, because oftentimes that's what happens. People just go do it without telling you how, right?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but you can't tell me anything. I fight with my nav system. She says, oh, go left here. No, you're not the boss of me.
Exactly. So we had to make sure that we were not just telling you to do it. We're not bossing you around, but we're actually telling you why it's important, how you can do it, how you can put it in there. But we don't even just leave you there. In the book, there's also that 21-day strategic rest action plan. So you can actually use the NAP framework to walk through stuff. And that's what Denise is talking about. So there's days where we literally provide for you exactly what to do. Like day one, establish a rest routine. We give you an action, we give you a reflection question, and then provide space for you to be able to come up with your plan. Because what we found too is that a lot of people feel like rest has to look the same, right? And it's not the case. There are things that help me feel rested. And until I did self awareness and really understood rest for myself, I didn't understand that it looks way different for someone else, right? For Dr. K, she talks about that in the book. Going to the gym for her helps her to feel rested, okay? Now, I wish I was a gym girly, but that is not
Yeah,
that is
I read that and went, no,
that is not the case for me. One
I'll
day
walk the dog. That's it.
exactly, right? My little dog Harley Quinn, if I get out the door with her, thank goodness for my wonderful husband who definitely takes on most of the dog walking duties, but absolutely. But for me, learning something new, oh my goodness, helps me to feel rejuvenated, right? I
Right.
always
Reading. Honestly, I don't sleep well, never have. I'm not an insomniac. I just don't really need that much sleep, 3, maybe 4 hours a night, not all in a row. And I finally figured out that sleeping cuts into my reading time. I don't like it.
Mm. And so there you go, right? For you, reading and allowing your
Mhm.
mind to go to something else allows for you to feel rested. And I bet you would probably tell people that if you got the opportunity to read, that you definitely show up as the best version of yourself for those people after that,
I
right?
do. I absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Listen, I'm looking around my office. I have hundreds of books in here. Yours is going to go on the first shelf next to my desk because this is an important book to me. I've got 3 of these. I've got books now in baskets. I need another bookcase or I need to build a bigger house, which I'm not gonna do. But give me a book, and I'll tell you honestly, and when I do fall asleep or I do, go into a light reading meditation, which I do all the time, all of a sudden I'm, "Oh, write that down." And I keep a notepad next to me because something that I will have read just triggers "Oh, I gotta write about that. I can teach about that." It's amazing. That's how my brain works, but that's rest for me.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people will ask me, okay, Aaron, uh, what's the difference between strategic rest and just taking a break? Okay, you're talking about
Yeah,
mini breaks. What's the difference here? And so strategic rest is about intention. It's deeply about intention. It's not just pausing. It's about really reflecting, resetting, and then also reconnecting so that you have the opportunity to lead with that clarity and energy. A break just helps you escape. Okay. So if you were just to kind of walk out onto your balcony, if you were to just walk out of your office, that's really just an escape from what's happening. But strategic rest, with you making sure that you're reflecting, that you're resetting, and then reconnecting to whatever it is, or whatever you need, or whoever you need in order to feel rested, that is what helps you return stronger. Right. And it's all about not just leaving it on the dance floor. It's about being able to come back to the dance floor and do it even better.
oh, I can't argue with you. And again, I knew that I needed to be doing something different because, I will go stick my head in the refrigerator. I'll go outside with the dog. I've been known to go outside. I've got giant pecan trees in my backyard and do what I call grounding. I'll get out there, I kick off my shoes, my feet are in the dirt or the mud. I'm in it's hurricane season right now, also known as mud season, and I'll lean against my pecan trees and breathe.
That
That helps me
has to
so much, you have no idea.
That's what I was gonna say. That has to be absolutely amazing, right? And especially for someone who loves nature. Like, think about
Mhm.
the restorative power of just going, you know what? I'm gonna commit to, going outside to be with my pecan trees, right?
I do it all the time. Yeah,
Exactly. It's a
I
part
love
of
those
your
trees.
and they love you back. I feel like I saw something the other day and someone was talking about that her tree was moving to kind of hug her or whatever the case is. So I'm going to take a deep, especially because I adore you. So I know for sure your pecan trees do too. But yes, right? That's not just happenstance. You schedule because you know that having that time to go outside and to ground yourself allows for you to not just come back, right? Even more clear, but it also allows you again to show up as the best version of yourselves. Now, oftentimes we kind of go, oh my goodness, all of these things come at us incredibly quickly. And that's why the NAP framework is really important. I giggled to myself because as you said that, it made me think about kind of the conversation that we had earlier in the green room about you going like, oh my goodness, I have all of these things happening. Maybe I should do something. Maybe I should do more recording. Maybe I should do all of these different pieces. And I stopped you and said, well, what if you didn't?
You did. And let me tell the audience what that was all about because I was whining. Yeah, I do that a lot. And my podcast now is booked as I mentioned earlier, this is only August 1. I am booked all the way through December, which scares me. And I have somebody who actually booked for January, and my thinking, erroneous as it turned out, and thank you for smacking me around in the virtual green room, was that maybe I just need to add a Thursday. I now broadcast Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I don't have a strong voice. It would take a toll on me. Plus, it takes a lot of work, and you set me straight. So you
Absolutely.
feel free to share what you told me. You didn't make my nose bleed. You didn't bloody my nose. So
I didn't, but I did say, listen, if you're doing the Thursday like you talked about, are you going to still love this? Like, I know you do, right? And you said, no, I
no,
wouldn't.
no.
So I said, so what are some of the other strategies that we can use in order to make it stay the way that you will still feel rested and enjoy and love this, right? Because when you're well rested, you will notice that you have more creativity. People enjoy the show because you come at it from a place and a space of both rest, right? Strategic rest, even though we're always constantly learning how to do that. But it's more clarity and fewer issues, I'm sure, or fires to put out around you when you're rested, right? Strategically, leaders who practice and people who practice strategic rest don't just work hard, they work well, right? And that's what we should all be aiming towards, not the hard, but the working well. Like a well-rested person to me doesn't look busy. They look energized, they look focused, they look like collaborative, right? And so it's important for us to really look for spaces for us to protect our boundaries, but also to be able to work well. So I, of course, made some suggestions in order to be able to keep the schedule that you were working for. And also going, hey, people want to be here and they're going to be here. So it's okay if it goes all the way into the next space. So sometimes it really comes from that reframing, right? The NAP framework came to play. First, we talked about nurturing yourself will require you to keep the schedule that you have. But we had to have that conversation, assessing what can we do in order to keep the schedule that you need in order to continue to love this, right? What could happen? What do we need? What are the tools? And I said, hey, AI may be able to help. What if they listen? Or maybe you take really good notes when you talk to your person in your pre-interview so that you're not feeling lost when you're coming back to their session. You keep it online so that you're always able to scroll back to it. And then finally, that prioritize, right? So prioritizing a few things there. Number one, yourself.
Yeah, that
Oftentimes,
would be nice. And, we
people
don't
are so
always.
People are so afraid to prioritize their self. And I always tell people, oh my goodness, we have to get rid of thinking that that is selfish. Because actually, when we prioritize not ourselves, but our well being, it really is not just for ourselves, but for the other people who are around us. How many people have there's so many listeners that have children and spouses and other people who want them to show up as the version of themselves that they love. If you're having to sit for 40 minutes in your car just to get your mind back together in order for you to be someone that people actually want to see when they walk into the door, Wha what's happening throughout your day? How can you
Yeah,
schedule rest so
there's
that
something
you're able.
wrong.
Exactly. And that was a question I had to ask myself, right? Do I want to show up as a watered down version of myself for the people who love me the most? Or do I want to be intentional about being rested, about practicing strategic rest, and being able to show up as the Erin that they know and love, not the grouchy one, not
Grouch.
the burnt out one, not the annoying one, right?
See, now you're talking about like grouchy is nothing. I'm I can make your ears bleed if you don't stop talking to me. That's how bad I
Exactly.
can get. But
Exactly. Now, don't get me wrong. If you need 10 minutes before you go into your house, take it. If you need 30 minutes before you walk in to be able to take a deep breath and digest what happens during the day, that could be a part of your nap framework, right? But I do want it to not be that people are hiding from the people that they love because they didn't take the moment throughout the day to be intentional about how to schedule rest as a part of their to integrate strategic rest into the work that they do every day.
I love that. And I'm back in the book, and I am at what page is this? Page 90, I think. And I think this is important. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but fostering social connections and supporting networks. And you said you schedule regular catch ups like you spoke of. I've had to learn to do that. I am a highly committed introvert. Everybody who listens to this knows this. I'm not shy, and I don't have any filters that I've ever figured out where they might be. But if I'm around people for too long, I am worn out. I can hang for 59 3/4 minutes. That's it. I'm done. But I still need connection. And that's why I started this podcast, to be honest, 17 and a half years ago, because I'm not really deliberately around people, and certainly not more than a group of two, because three people is just too people-y for me. I can't handle it. But I really can't take it. But when I get to meet people like you and so many, all of my guests, there are many, many ways y'all become my mentors. And in some ways, my coach. You just coached me, whether you meant to or not. And I thank you for that. It's, but there are ways to connect with other people. Maybe it's, doing, scheduling networking sessions. Maybe it's masterminding. Maybe it's having a podcast. Maybe it's just jumping on LinkedIn and jumping into other people's conversations and say, hey, atta girl, way to go. You can do it.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be, I'm never lonely. I've never, ever been lonely,
Mhm.
but I need to be alone a lot. And I mean a lot. In fact, there's a sign on my door that says, if you weren't invited or I'm not expecting you, don't knock or ring the doorbell. You know who does? Politicians. And that's all I've got to say on that. So,
You are absolutely. So it's so important for us to cultivate relationships, right? In the way that we need them and that they help us to feel rested with friends, with mentors, with peers outside of work, because that
mhm.
really provides not just emotional support, but really helps you to enhance your resilience, right? So for me, I have another colleague who I absolutely adore. She and I have every 3 months we do a retreat. That's what we call it,
Oh,
right?
nice.
And so there's one major rule. There are a couple major rules for the retreat, but one of the biggest rules is that we choose a hotel that is no more than an hour away. Okay. So this is not tons of travel. This is not anything so that this is attainable. So we can walk away from the stuff that we have. And then the second plan is that we always choose somewhere that Friday night to eat that neither of us have eaten at, so that it's a new experience, so that we're learning something together, that we're laughing together, but also experiencing something new together, which can help you feel rested. And then we stay in the hotel, we stay up all night. I always try to make sure that we get adjoining rooms so we can laugh and talk through the door to each other. But we don't just laugh and catch up about life. We do that, but we also talk about our goals, stuff that we're holding each other accountable to for the next time that we see each other. We talk through complex issues that maybe we had that other people won't be able to understand. And even though we tend to stay up all night, almost all night on that Friday night when we get together to do that, I leave feeling rejuvenated every time and charged and excited about the next steps for my business, about my life, and about our friendship. And so, yes, looking for people, and it doesn't have to be a whole weekend, but as you see, it's easy for you to be able to do that. But that's a huge part of my rest strategy and the rest routine that I use that other people can easily do. It doesn't mean you have to go to some posh hotel, okay? But
Oh, why not? Room service,
okay,
come
if
on.
it's me, it's always gonna be it's always gonna be the case, right? Because that's a part of my rest ritual and strategy. But for you, it doesn't have to be. We've got to stop thinking, number one, that rest is only sleep. That's the first thing. And the second part is that it looks the same for everyone. It's really about feeling inspired to be intentional about figuring out what your strategic rest plans and rituals should look like and routines.
Oh, I like rituals. I wrote that down. What I have to ask you, can you share a story about how rest or pausing, and that's an important word has led to greater I can't talk no more. I'm done. Can you let me start over? Can you share a story about how rest or pausing has led to greater creativity in your own life and the lives of your clients? Because you're not just talking to me. When you're talking to a whole big world here, how can you help them?
Absolutely. So for me, pausing is really how a few things, right? This book was born from us taking a beat and going like, what are next steps for what we want to do, and how can we provide this for other people? But for me specifically, I always take opportunities to pause and rest and come back with ideas. Power Nap Live, the show that I do on Sundays at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. It is live on YouTube, and it's so much fun because I talk to people in the comments and share. It's really kind of an energy boost for your week, right? For leaders or for anyone who really wants to watch. But I kind of give tips and tricks about how to um, weave strategic rest into your week, the week coming up, right? So that for me was born out of literally taking a break. I went one weekend, I told my husband, I'm gonna just check into like a cool hotel. I'm gonna get some room service. I just needed a couple days to just like think through exactly the way that I want to move forward to impact people, right? And that was one of the things as I had a notepad. Well, actually, my Remarkable too, which I love so much. I keep saying I'm going to reach out to them because I have sold so many Remarkable twos. But whatever the case is, every time I thought about something cool, I would just write it down in my Remarkable. That's what I would do
I don't
every
even know what that is.
Oh my goodness. It's kind of like it's a digital notebook. So
Ah,
remember Rocket books used to be like really kind of cool, but you would have to have that little marker. Well, now Remarkable 2 is like a digital notebook, but it doesn't come with all the shenanigans of some of those other pads because it really is just a digital notebook, right? So it stays charged for so long because it doesn't have games and all of these other things that are constantly trying to get it, or like, you know exactly what I'm saying. But it's so cool because it feels like you can have a million different notebooks, but in this one small kind of digital device. Oh, I love it. I'll have to show it to you sometimes because
yeah.
it is one of my favorite things that I have.
Send me a link. I need something like
I
that.
got
You know what
your
I do? I send a lot of emails to myself. And at the end of the day, I'm going, uh, because I have to sort through all of them and then put them where they belong. And I'm thinking, there's got to be an easier way.
Absolutely, and this is the easier way. You know how people would like walk from meetings to meeting and they would have like these little notebooks where they jot down different things. Well, for me, I don't have to have that. It's in a digital space. So I can have a notebook. So I have like a folder that's only for things for my business. So you talked about at the beginning, I own a consultant firm, a learning and
Right.
development consultant firm, Design Ideal Consulting. So I have one folder on that my Remarkable that holds tons of notebooks about different things for that, right? I have one that is for church. So any notes that I take during sermons or prayers that I write down or all of these different pieces all have their own notebooks. But we're talking about this super thin, really small kind of tablet that you're able to have all of these different spaces. It also has different templates. So if you're someone who writes music or doodles or all of those different things, it provides the opportunity for you to rest through those different ways because you can use it as a journal if that's the way you feel rested, right? Or practice strategic rest through writing. So really looking again to me, having a tool like that is one of the ways in which I don't have to like spend tons of time looking for things that I've written because I can easily just scroll back or look or search and it's not distracting like my cell phone when people are sending me texts or all of these different things or social media. So I absolutely adore it. And it's a huge part of um was one of the ways that helps me to be able to rest. So that's exactly
Right.
what it was. I took a couple days to just go, what will it look like to move forward and to jump into full-time entrepreneurship? What are my strategies? What are my different pieces? But I did it all while laying in a bed at an expensive hotel, right? When I checked out, I didn't just check out feeling rested. I checked out feeling exhilarated and feeling ready to go and creative about my next steps in creating, moving our book forward, creating new sessions that, oh my goodness, so many of my clients, all of my clients really love when they bring me in for corporations and different things to do things around relationship intelligence. I also do sessions around strength-based leadership for folks. And we're talking people who send me messages constantly going, I heard you in this session that someone brought me in for in junior league and all of these different things that changed my life. Will you come and do this at my job? Right. So having the moments and the time to be able to sit and to think about what people really need to hear is also so important. Right. And
And
so
if
I
you're listening, they're going to tell you what they need to hear.
Exactly. Exactly, right? And so the same thing for many of my clients and people who walk up to me and who have read my book. One of the most sweetest ladies came up to me. I was doing a session for some executives that were over human resources, like a auxiliary group for like a big region, right? And so all of their executive leaders were doing their retreat. And so they brought me and Dr. K, Dr. Kelly Dixon, in to talk about strategic rest, of course, because that's a part of and should be as they're going into their big leadership strategy, right? Or into their year as leaders for this group with thousands and thousands of people that they would lead. And so one of the ladies, she had my book or our book before we got there. So she walks up to me after the session and she goes with all of her little notepad, with all of her little what are these things called? Sticky notes, just like
Sticky
you were
notes.
talking about. She had all
I
the
have
sticky
all
notes.
kinds of colors. I've got them
That's what she
everywhere.
said, in her highlighter, and she showed me the book. She said, "This changed my life." And I said, "Well, tell me more about that. Why?" She said, "One of the things that was really making my time at work miserable was that I have a colleague who works with me. And every day I would be asking her, hey, do you want to go to lunch? Right. And she would go, oh, I don't know if I need to go to lunch or I have all of these things to work on. And so she said that would really impact. So I would be spending all this time trying to coax her into going to lunch to try to take care of herself and all of these different things. But then it would negatively impact my ability to be able to enjoy what I was doing, right? So she said, when I read your book and talked about like nurturing myself, assessing what is necessary and prioritizing, I stopped harassing her about her lunch, about her schedule. And then I started to notice that I was actually enjoying my lunch. I was coming back, being able to get more work done. I wasn't having to stay until 7 p.m. anymore when I actually get off at 5. But it all came from really taking a look at the things that were causing me not to feel rested in my workspace, but also the things about your workspace that do help you feel rested and how can you amplify those, right? So I get people all the time who tell me some fantastic stories, even modeling rest. I had a client the other day who was sharing with me about how he now, of course, because we talked about this, started to make his meetings only 50 minutes. That's the max that he'll do as a meeting. So he has 10 minutes after every meeting to digest what they talked about so that if he needs to use some of the material in the next meeting, he can. And then also, or 10 minutes just to not hear anybody talking to him. He was like, I need
Right.
it, right? And so once he did that, the people in his office started to see that that was happening and they started to do it. And he said people started to it started to become a better office to be in because people were taking just a tiny bit of time. That 10 minutes was making such a difference from how people were showing up in meetings before and now how they're showing up prepared,
Oh,
feeling
right. I was gonna say they're prepared and they're condensed. They're not talking at you.
and
They've got something to say. They're going to say it in a way that makes sense and then stop talking.
absolutely. So it is so important for us to make sure that we're doing that because to me, performance really is sacrifice when people don't integrate rest, right? It's all about making sure that the culture has it modeled from the top so people do it. And we as leaders have to stop. We have to start by also rewarding people who are doing sustainable practices and not just again pretending to be busy through that visible hustle culture.
Yeah, and when did that start, the hustle culture? Has that always been around and we're just paying more attention, or what the heck is that all about?
I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I know for me, the first time that I encountered it was really in college. That's where as you read in the book, I talk about how rest was really important to my family, specifically for our religious reasons. So my parents were definitely people who worked hard. They did fantastic jobs throughout the whole time that I knew them. My dad was a big executive. My mom, did her work too. But the rest was incredibly important to them, especially on the weekend, especially, what it looked like. So I came from people who valued rest, then went to college and picked up this ideal that if I didn't always look busy, I would not get the next title. I wouldn't get this next thing or whatever the case was. So I had to deprogram myself from that because people are just being taught. Even social media, all of these places show people who are pretending to be busy, pretending to be rich, pretending to be
Yeah. Yeah,
productive.
I know a lot of people who drive Lamborghinis, honest. You know, I've never seen one in real life.
And it creates this pretend thing that these people are not really doing, but other people are subscribing to going, I'm not doing enough, right?
Right, right.
We have to start fighting back against that I'm not doing enough and start really looking for ways because rest is not a luxury. It's how we're able to build, it's how we're able to create, and ultimately, it's how good leaders are able to lead.
And here's a question for you. I'm scribbling notes like crazy. I had to move one of the cats off of my notepad again. Hamilton is an ass. He's always on my notepad for some reason. But we were talking earlier, and you were talking about this just now when you went to college, and I wrote down earlier, you had to shift from ambition to purpose. But here's my question. If we don't know really what our ambition is, and we're just doing a whole bunch of stuff, the spaghetti on the wall, hoping it sticks,
Mhm.
how do we figure out what our real purpose is? Because honestly, I've had people say, Denise, why do you do what you do? I don't know. I do know, I just hadn't until recently articulated it properly, even to myself. And that was a real stumbling block for me.
Absolutely. That's where that self-awareness piece becomes incredibly important because most people, and especially why they don't feel rested, is because most people don't stop to ask themselves, why am I doing this? Right?
Yes, and what am I tolerating? That's another question.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What am I tolerating? And then why is this what I am choosing to do? That was a big question that I had to ask myself before I went into full-time entrepreneurship with my consultant firm, right? Is I had to ask myself as I was moving up in in higher ed spaces. So I worked at a university and was literally sitting at a conference. It wasn't even a conference. It was a symposium for women who had been highly recommended as next step for executive leadership at universities, right? So I was already a senior director and I was already in interviews for being vice president of in different spaces in higher education, right? So all of this, I'm sitting there and for one moment of clarity, I thought to myself, is this what brings you joy? Right? I would be fantastic at this work, but is it what I'm called to do? Right? And that's a question that many people need to ask themselves. And you don't often have time to ask yourself that if you're not taking moments in order for you to think and to come to spaces with clarity. But it's so important for people to ask themselves, not just because I'm good at this, but is it what I'm called to do? Those aha moments that I would see people have when I would present content to people or to tell them about how they're motivated through a phenomenal assessment that I use in my consultant firm called Total SDI 2.0. It tells you with relationship intelligence how you're motivated, how you experience conflict, what your strengths are, and also how your overdone strengths can impact your relationships negatively, right? And so having those conversations with people, seeing their eyes get big. I had a guy who came up to me and said, "Where were you? I probably wouldn't be divorced if I had your session 2
Oh,
years ago," right? So seeing the aha moments for people and the light bulbs really allowed me to go, this is where the joy is, Erin. I want to do what I'm being called to do, which is impact people in that way and not just something just because I'm good at it.
and you're reminding me of when I started my web development company, which was about 20 years ago, which is shocking to me. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But people would, and I would have to not argue with them, but point out this is not what people want to hear from you because they just had this enormous need to list all of their qualifications. And I mean, every stinking one of them. Nobody cares. Seriously, they don't. They want to know what's in it for them, how you can impact them or show them or teach them. They don't care. Look, I have a computer science degree. Nobody cares but me because I had to pay for it. But it's just, I would not list that anywhere. I just wouldn't. Nobody cares.
Absolutely. It's really, too, a big part about one of the things about leadership, right? I may not remember, I have some managers and some leaders who have been some phenomenal people to me, right? And there are a couple things that I think about that have always informed the way that I supervised people. But one of the big things about who they were to me is how they made me feel, right?
Right. I guess that's in a roundabout way. That's what I was trying to say. I got a little wordier about it, though. Thank you.
No, that was perfect. And so as you're searching to be that leader that people want to be like, right? Or to be the leader that people actually want to work for, this being strategic practice and strategic rest is a huge strategy for that. People aren't leaving jobs, right? For the most part, people don't leave jobs. We all know based on the data that people and the statistics that people leave their jobs because most of the time they hate their boss.
Right. Right. If you go, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, if you have to sit in your car for 10 to 40 minutes decompressing, you hate your boss.
And absolutely. And the environment that you're in, right?
Right. The
So
culture.
how do we, as we develop new leaders, how do we change that for people? And I dare to say, I invite people to realize that having leaders who are people actually want to be around, that people actually that they're leading with clarity, with creativity, with emotional and relationship intelligence all of those things come from being someone who practices strategic rest, who is the best version of yourself when you're showing up in these meetings, in these places, and supporting people as they help you meet the mission of whatever organization or team that you're a part of.
And that goes back to a question because you say, I wrote this down, you don't have to be brave to be bold in leadership. And you're kind of, touching on that now. Let's go a little deeper.
Absolutely. That is a phrase that gets me through so many different things. It was the one that I said to myself when I decided to leave my I would say cushy job because I loved doing what I was doing working for Marriott International. I was overseeing training and development for 3 of their phenomenal hotels in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and absolutely loved helping people understand themselves through learning and development and also how to provide phenomenal service to the fantastic guests that were coming into the hotels. But I told myself that I had to be bold and I could do this scared when I decided to walk away from all of it and to jump full time into my own consulting firm because for I really wanted and knew I was being called to have the opportunity to talk to people specifically about strategic rest, also to talk to them about self-awareness, specifically through that relational intelligence ability for people to be able to do that so that they can change, to use that IQ in order to change the way that they use language as they're talking to different people, because we're all motivated differently, right? So everything that I do, I tell myself I do not have to be brave to do it. Oftentimes we stay in inaction because we're scared, right? But we have
Oh, good point. Yeah.
so afraid to move to the next thing, to just do the next thing. But there's nothing that says we can't be scared while we do it, right? And so that's what I choose to do. That's what I talk to clients about all the time. That it's okay to be scared. Scared doesn't keep you from being bold. And in every move that I do in my life, I make sure that even though I often always feel scared, I feel scared constantly when I'm thinking of something new, even when I'm doing my shows on Sunday, whether or not the information I'm talking about will resonate with people, even though I get people afterwards who go like, oh my goodness, I needed that. Or in the comments, people are going, yes, thank you for saying that, right? But each time I go, not being scared, but I definitely make sure to walk in life being bold. And when you do that, oh my goodness, the things that will meet you on that path are mind-blowing in the
Oh,
best way.
absolutely. And what I've learned about being an entrepreneur, because I have to be one, I'm
Mhm.
unemployable. I cannot work in your office because I play with scissors. I, don't play well with others. And, if you want coffee, you can get it your own darn self. I'm not going to do it. So there's that. But I have learned through my own experiences and talking with people like you over the years that as entrepreneurs, we have to have a cast iron stomach. We
Mhm.
really do.
Mhm.
And, we're going to
Absolutely.
get knocked down multiple times a day. Seriously.
Absolutely.
We just, get up, brush the seat of our pants off, go hug a tree, and get back out there.
And get back out there. And oftentimes people go, "Hey, how did you do that?" And I really tell them there's no secret. I just did it. Right?
Exactly.
I go, there's
Take
no
action.
I literally the difference between somebody having something that you want or that you thought or whatever the case is, and you not having it sometimes is literally just action, right? I wanted to be able to give people energy every week before they start their week. And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to start a show and I'm going to do it," right? I wanted to talk to more people about how they can use strategic rest as that strategy in order to make sure that they're able to do and show up how they want to. And so I said, I'm going to talk to people about it, right? It's so important for us to understand, again, you can do it scared, but you've got to be bold and you've got to be intentional and you've got to take action.
You do. And let me tell you how this podcast started, is just what you're saying. 17 and a half years ago, I had a friend of mine. She's a journalist and I've known her for a long time. And she said, Denise, I would love to interview you. And I said, okay. So she said, let's just record it and I'll send you the link. I said, okay. Yeah, not even thinking. So a couple days later, I get this link and I thought, oh, because I figured it was an article. She was going to transcribe it and, put it somewhere, ink or somewhere. And I hit the link, Erin, and all I could hear out of my own voice was, oh, crap. What was that? Because I heard my own voice and none of us like our own voices, right? And to me, all I could think was, I sound like I'm about to say happy birthday, Mr. President. I sound ridiculous. And I called her and I said, what the hell was that? And she started laughing. She said, Denise, that's a podcast. I said, what the hell is a podcast? And she explained it to me. Erin, I was a podcaster the next day. I didn't wait to think about it or let it terrify me. I took action.
Absolutely. And here we are, right? Here we
Exactly.
are with amazing people who I know listen and get so much amazing information from you. And it took you going like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And so whatever it is, right? If for you if you're listening right now, this is for you. If you didn't hear anything else that I said today, if you are waiting to figure out how to be rested, stop waiting. Just try. Do something. 10 minutes of quiet time, if that's the thing. 1 minute of quiet time, if that's what you need. But the difference between you being able to experience it and not is literally action. So, whatever it is, even if it's not rest for you in this moment, whatever you're waiting to do, don't wait. Jump out and do it. Understand who you are outside of maybe your leadership role, outside of who you are as a parent, outside of who are you, right? And nurture that part of you. And rest is a big part of how you can do that.
It really is. And, I'm learning. When I read this book, I went, I knew this already. Darn it. I knew this already. Ooh, that's cool. So it's a great book. Listen, thank you for joining me today. And this has been such an insightful conversation. And I love how you've reminded us that bold leadership, write that down, y'all, bold leadership doesn't always require feeling brave, that strategic rest is not a luxury, but a true leadership strategy. And listen, we are all leaders. I can hear people say, oh, I'm a housewife. I'm part of the PTA, you're leading. If you're a housewife, you've got children, I've got cats, I'm leading. I don't have children, but I've got cats. I pay the mortgage, they do the rest. That's all there is to it, but I'm leading the household. We all lead, whether we recognize it as leadership or not. So strategic rest is really, it's a strategy and you really need to pay attention to it. And that relationship intelligence is a superpower that can transform how here I go again, teams thrive. Erin, tell people where they can find you. And any final thoughts that you'd like to share, and where can they find you, and where can they find your book?
Absolutely. So the last thing that I always want to make sure that I leave people with is that guilt really thrives in cultures that confuse worth with productivity. Okay. Because oftentimes people go, how can I overcome again that guilt that comes with resting? Right. And so we have to make sure that all of us do the work to redefine what being a good leader looks like, because rest is not selfish. It's really responsible. And people don't need your exhaustion, they need your clarity. Okay. And so if you want to hear more about that and how to get that clarity every week, please make sure to like and subscribe my show on YouTube. It's called Power Nap Live, of course, every Sunday Central Standard Time. I'm there right there on YouTube to bring you some fun and some laughter. And then also, if you're looking for me, you can also find my book anywhere that books are kind of sold at this point. It's called Strategic Rest in Leadership. You can grab it off of Amazon or any bookstore that you know of. If you are a leader and you want to bring in someone to talk about strategic rest or relationship intelligence or strength-based leadership, you can find me at designidealconsulting.com. That's where you can find some of my sessions, coaching, and then even some more information about my book. And I would love, if you're, like I said, a team leader looking to energize your team without burning them out, slide into my inbox. You can find me at that website that I just provided, Design Ideal Consulting. And because we've got work and rest to do. Okay. Oh, and don't forget to check me out on LinkedIn. I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. So you can find me under Dr. Erin Wilson on LinkedIn. And I'd love to follow and connect with you there. Denise, thank
Thank
you so much.
Oh, it has been my pleasure. And you're coming back.
Yes, yes.
That
I
wasn't a
can't not say
suggestion.
yes to that.
That was a demand. So you've got to come back. And this has been a wonderful conversation. And I do want to go deeper into the book, but mostly I want people to get this book. So everybody, if today's conversation resonated with you, I really encourage you to connect with Dr. Erin Wilson and explore her work at Design Ideal Consulting, and definitely check out her book, Strategic Rest in Leadership, the NAP Framework. Erin, thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for joining me on your Partner in Success Radio. And for more resources and expert insights, make sure to visit us on yourpartnerinsuccessradio.com. Excuse me. I am Denise Griffitts, and I will see you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.